All right. Hello, everybody. We'll kick this off. The land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat First Nation. We acknowledge that we live and work within their vast lands. Akanehunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. With that, I'll call us to order. We can get a approval of agenda and late items. Anybody want to move that? Councilor McIsaac and Ramadas. All in favor? Okay. And we need a mover to adopt the minutes of the previous meetings of council. Regular meeting held on September 10th, 2024. Claudia Kelly, Nixon, all in favor? Okay. And now we will open the floor to public participation. Speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes. All right, is there anybody? Guess not. Oh yeah, is there anybody online? Thank you. Thanks, Councilor McIsaac. And moving on, we need a motion to move into committee of the whole. Do I have a Councilor Hamilton and Nixon, all in favor? And with that, we have a report from the Acting Manager of Engineering, Director Baird.
Thank you, everybody, for having me here. Just a moment, I'll get this. I'll learn how to use Zoom and get my screen sharing. Okay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. As you know, I'm here to provide an update on the wastewater treatment system assessment and compliance strategy project. Staff last provided an update to this project back in November of 2023, at which time we summarized the completed project work that we had done to date, highlighted an unknown condition around our outfall and how that relates to the municipal wastewater regulation. So since that last presentation, we've completed that sampling program that we spent a lot of time in 2023 doing. Our environmental impact study is now largely complete. We've continued on with Indigenous consultation, and we did receive confirmation on the compliance of our outfall that I spoke about almost a year ago as it relates to the MWR. Which unfortunately was that our current outfall is not in compliance with the current regulation. And this initiated some studies that took place over the course of this year. So tonight, my presentation will summarize the project timeline, from the beginning back to today, as well as a brief overview of the sampling program that we did. Provide you some further detail on the findings of that environmental impact study, sewage treatment plant performance assessment, as well as a fluvial geomorphic assessment that was completed as a result of the confirmation of our non-conformance of our outfall, and bring you through a couple of the last steps that we would need to complete the project. So Going back in time, I guess, this project really started in June of 2022 when the city made a formal application to the Ministry of Environment for a full-time river discharge of treated effluent into the Elk River. This changes our process from what we do today, which is an intermittent discharge. Following a pre-application meeting in November of 2022, staff, our consultants, and the ministry spent some time working together to establish the overall requirements for our final submission for this application. This was confirmed in March of 2023. And then shortly after that, we began our sampling program, which included a few other studies on benthic invertebrates and mapping out our dilution zone later in 2023. Back in November there, we provided this update on where we were. And then shortly after that, we concluded our sampling program in January of 2024. That clarification around our outfall was received from the province in March of 2024. And that was where we were told that our current outfall, given the conditions that we have, doesn't meet the requirements, and that either significant river modification, training works, or relocation of our outfall would be required to maintain compliance. So as a result of learning this, we procured a specialist in river modeling and outfall design to assess our options related to where this outfall is and if it makes sense to move it. That work, along with our environmental impact study, concluded in August, largely concluded in August, as well as a formal extension request with the province was made to give us some more time to complete. Our sampling program, as I mentioned, took up a large portion of 2023, gathering all that data that we needed to complete our environmental impact assessment. The figure you see on the screen here shows the days in relation to flow in the Elk River, as well as discharge from our treatment facility. And when we sampled, those are the red dots on the screen. The goal for river sampling was to capture high flows in the river, which you can see we got it almost perfectly in May of 2023. Also to capture a continuous period of discharge of our facility for at least 30 days of relatively low flow that we also nailed later in the summer, August and September of 2023. Other goals for our sampling were to capture cold weather, low flow events, as well as warm weather, low flow events. Can't see the temperature here on the screen, but we were all around in December and November of last year, where we were able to capture some of those cold weather events. I did provide, show you guys, this back in November of 2023 as part of that update, but this shows where we were sampling from within our facility itself, as well as within the Elk River. So what did we learn? As I mentioned, the environmental impact assessment was much more, the more comprehensive component of our early work window. And the outcome of this sets our discharge parameters that ultimately our treatment facility has to meet as part of our new permit for full-time river discharge. Most of the parameters assessed by the study in terms of our effluent discharge were found to be assimilated by the Elk River within about 100 meters downstream of our discharge point. In some instances, total ammonium nitrogen and total aluminum remain above the BC water quality guidelines beyond that 100-meter point. So what that means, subject to future adjustments and relocation of the outfall, which I'll get to in a moment, the processes may need some optimization, or we may need some upgrades to deal with these parameters, that being the aluminum and total ammonium nitrogen. Also, as part of our work over the last year, reviewing that data that we collected over 2023, we perform an assessment on how our treatment plant is performing. As a quick summary, our treatment facility currently achieves treatment through two different methods. One, discharge to ground, where influent enters the facility. Let's see, can you see my cursor? Through aeration basin number 1 in the middle of the screen, and then it flows sort of counterintuitively into aeration basin number 2 and aeration basin number 3, where it's air is added and the effluent is mixed. And then it moves into the rapid infiltration basins, labeled as RI basins on the screen, where it's discharged to ground. during times when that discharge to ground is unable to keep up with the current demands. The process generally begins the same into aeration basins 1 through 3, and then it is mixed with an aluminum sulfate solution and moves into the phosphorus removal cells, or labeled as P cells on the screen. This chemical additive causes the phosphorus to precipitate out of the wastewater and settle in those P cells. From there, the effluent goes through a UV disinfection facility and discharges into the river. Again, what we found throughout our analysis and sampling over the past year, generally the facility is effective at reducing the typical wastewater facility components of biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended solids within the wastewater. Over the course of the sampling program, we did see some challenges with our phosphorus removal, and that is that when we're discharging to the river, adding that chemical and going into the P cells. A few times where we saw spikes and whatnot. I will say with that, generally, like over the course of the entire year, exceedances were not anything drastic and not something that we don't see as being manageable with just operating our system maybe more efficiently. Again, the phosphorus removal one's a tricky one. It changes depending on temperature, inflow from the city, and our operators have to be able to respond to those changes relatively quickly. And things like a power outage at the facility causing the pumps to shut down obviously affects that. But generally overall, good. And then the most exciting, our fluvial geomorphic analysis and outfall options analysis that was completed as a result of confirmation provided by the Ministry of Environment. As I mentioned, we procured a specialist in river modeling that went out and did a detailed survey of the Elk River, sort of in the area that you can see on the screen there. This included a 2D hydraulic model and looking at some historical data of how the river moves. The initial findings of this study concluded that the current outfall is in a fairly active section of the Elk River and historically encourages braiding and depositions and gravel bars, as we've sort of experienced here recently. The image you can see here shows the Elk River bank lines drawn in various colors back from 1968 up to 2018. The 1968 line shown in green, and our current outfall is sort of right along here where it says cross-section 3A. You can see the 1968 line, the Elk River was in quite a different position than it is today. So this study looked at potential options such as river training or relocation of the outfall. And generally it's landing at relocation of the outfall being the much more realistic idea. And that probably ideal location being somewhere between cross sections 1A and cross sections 2A there on the screen. And you can see all of those historic river boundary lines have essentially not moved in the last 50 years. If we were to move the outfall up into this location, we would require some additional conveyance piping on our site and possibly a pump station to discharge the effluent to the river. With moving the outfall up here, there's likely a possibility that improvement in mixing would have an added benefit on that relocation and may reduce our treatment requirements. And so finally, now our next steps. We have a number of puzzle pieces to sort of fit together as this thing all comes to an end. One, determining the ideal outfall location. And with that, we would be doing in tandem river modeling to determine what those river limits would be based on the new mixing of this revised location. With that, we would be able to determine if we would need additional treatment processes and what they would be and begin design on those. in tandem with that, finalizing some of those other reports that need to go along with our application, such as the I&I study, an effluent reuse study, which I spoke about before and are largely completed, just waiting for these final answers to be fallen into place. And that is my update on where we're at. I'll open the floor to any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Baird. Questions from council? Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Engineer Baird, I was just wondering when you mentioned power outages, so we don't have like a backup like generator system or anything in case of power outages?
Not at the treatment facility, no.
Okay, probably not something that happens a lot.
I don't have the exact number, but power outages do happen out there. Director Eisler can probably fact check me on that.
Thanks for letting me jump in. Through to council, yeah, power outages, maybe just, a handful of 5 a year, but even a little brownout or a little bump can trip a bunch of alarms and shut down certain important parts. So I'd anticipate, we're taking somewhere in the ballpark of 20 alarms per year going out there and dealing with just a power related issue.
Councillor Ramadas.
Thanks, Councillor Shoesmith. Back in November or December, when you guys had come in front of us, we asked the question whether we are on timeline or not, and the answer was we were exactly where we should be at that point in time. So between then and today, when did you guys actually come to know that there was more work required for this and an extension is needed?
Thanks, Councillor Ramadas. That would be when we got the confirmation on the outfall and what that meant for the MWR. So that would have been in March of 2024 when the ministry said that the outfall is in non-compliance. And so that meant that in addition to a project of getting our treatment facility to compliance, we needed to look at how that outfall was. And so that initiated a whole nother study that took, a good chunk of the spring and the summer to largely get through.
Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Just in case folks may not know, we were recently at the Union of BC Municipalities, and we were able to meet with Minister Heyman and some of his staff and explain some of the things that you just explained to us, and highlight that more time would be lovely. So just for the edification of those listening. Council did advocate. Mayor Milligan was very eloquent as always.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Nixon.
Yeah, just thank you, your deputy mayorship.
I like it.
I was trying to come up with some. I'm gonna try to come up with something different every time. Just to follow up with Councillor Audia Kelly here. But I know that one of the things that we're going to do is reach out to the local person here. Like I think it was in Cranbrook. I didn't get the name, but I know that there's been a provincial election called, and it's only been a week. But have we heard from these people yet?
Through to Councillor Nixon, no, we have not heard back from the ministry yet. But it's very good to hear about the work you guys are doing there on the other end.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's what I've settled on. Okay, my question actually relates to the two specific options that are being investigated right now, one of which is reuse of the old 2015 outflow and the other one is new infrastructure. And I was wondering if it'd be possible to get an idea of what the differential in time of solution cost of those two solutions would be, and also what the potential, if option one with the reuse is significantly cheaper and faster, but knowing that it might potentially run out, I'd be curious to know if that's being looked at as a potential interim solution. I'm looking at something later to buy time, do more investigation, and so on.
Through to Councillor McIsaac. I guess since the time that the staff report was written, We've been working with our consultants on this, and it's seeing like more and more, whether we go with the old, our currently emergency outfall, versus moving this upstream even more, we would still require additional piping. Highly likely that we would require a pump station. So like your cost is likely minimal between the two options. And the mixing in that lower down zone is more inconsistent. All signs are pointing us more to the more consistent, stable reach of the Elk River. One, it gives us a better understanding of what the mixing would be, which has the higher probability of reducing our treatment requirements. So as far as going through like an analysis on cost benefit, I guess we're not there yet, but as more and more information has come to light in the last month, it's looking more and more like that further upstream option is going to be more advantageous for us. I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, I think you did, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramadas, and then Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Maybe you answered this question already, Manager, but is it fair to say that overall the picture is looking like the amount of effort that we thought we had to put in is probably decreased despite getting despite asking for an extension from the ministry? Like, would that be fair to say?
Through to Councillor Ramadas, I don't know if there was really an expectation at this outset of what we would ultimately need to do. I know we've been sort of, even at the November update about a year ago, this ammonia nitrogen parameter has come up, and that continues to be one that we think might be needed. So I don't know if it's better or worse, and I don't want to give anyone false hope. I also don't want to scare anybody. So the big piece that we really need to know is how that mixing is going to be for the new outfall location. And that's when we'll know what parameters we need to do and know what sort of upgrades would be required. And as I mentioned there, we're hoping to sort of work through that in the next few months here, and then provide an update once we have some more nailed down understanding and costs on where we'd be there. Again, sort of not directly answering your question, but does that help? Okay.
Thank you very much for the false hope. I'll cling to it. Councillor Hamilton.
My question was pretty much identical question, just phrased a little differently. Of with this change to the outflow location, will that and how will that impact the requirements for the treatment plant facility?
Again, until we complete the remodeling of the mixing, we won't really know. But understanding that currently our outfall discharges into a really small side channel that's not like a main flow of the river. As you saw in that picture before, the Elk River is confined to a much narrower section there. So, we anticipate that the mixing and how that gets assimilated would be able to happen much quicker. So all signs point to, moving it up there being a more positive option. And not having to dig out an outfall every couple of years.
Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, your acting deputy mayor worship. Engineer Baird, could you just talk a little bit about lagoon augmentation a little bit? Like, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Is that like making them bigger, dredging them, or is it just apply more? Because it says new treatment stage. So I was wondering, is that just the chemicals, or is that actually physically doing something to the lagoons?
Thank you. Great question. Yeah, what we mean by like the lagoon augmentation is that, with the facility that we have, if we had to add a new treatment stage, again, that total ammonia nitrogen parameter is the one that keeps coming up. There are ways to do that without building an entirely new facility. We could, say, repurpose one of our rapid infiltration basins that would no longer be needed to house another piece of treatment that would take care of that parameter if it's required. So yeah, when we say like augmentation, it's like taking what we have and adjusting it in such a way, as opposed to starting fresh.
Is that all from council? Thank you, Mr. Baird. I appreciate the efforts. This is a pretty big boogeyman for me, and I'm happy to see it being handled so well.
Thank you.
And with that, we have a report from our bylaw officer, Officer Leach. Oh, that's why I can't see her. Okay.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship and members of council. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys here. So just hold on a second. All right. Just give it a second. Okay, are you guys able to see it okay? Oh, are you guys able to see it okay? Okay, perfect. I got some sort of weird dinging on my end, but thank you very much for allowing me to present the second quarter of the Bylaw Services Report for 2024. I'm just going to go through and mention some key points. So the public requests for service, quarter one to quarter two, the streets and traffic requests for services dropped from the first quarter. So business license requests for service also dropped down. And by that, we mean essentially records of concern. So people that are phoning in essentially wanting us to investigate or have concerns about legitimacy of businesses, things like that. Animal responsibility, solid waste and noise, all of our requests for service stayed the same actually on those ones, which is good. Just a quick little bit on short-term rental licenses. So we have 230 licenses issued for this quarter, like from first quarter to second quarter. So we've gone up by 36 since 2023. Business licenses are 1,139 issued. So those have also gone up by 95. So we're definitely seeing an increase in those. It's taking up quite a bit of our time. Pet licenses. So this is interesting. This is something that I've been really kind of working hard on. So in 2023, we had 38 new registrations. 2024, only 22. So it actually dropped by 16. But they went back up for the renewal licenses. So I'm not sure really kind of what's going on there. So I'm going to just kind of do a little bit more work on that and try and do some more education and some more positive reinforcement, trying to get people to register their dogs, like the, people that just moved to town and stuff. So I'd like to see those numbers go up. So 2024 second quarter total is 182. So overall, we did go up by 44. And remember, this is only the second quarter that this is being reported on. So it could be even changed again. Municipal tickets issued. So I compared the first quarter to the second quarter just to provide a little bit more information for everyone, streets and traffic. So the first quarter is in blue and second quarter is in red. So obviously, I focused on streets and traffic, and we focused on business licensing, but just didn't see that same increase. It all depends on the type of season as well. So more tickets were issued regarding animal responsibility. So those would be negative interactions between either dog versus dog or dog versus human. It can also be, dogs off leash, that kind of thing. So the noise has gone up. 2 tickets were issued for noise violations, and solid waste for the first quarter, 2 tickets were issued, and for the second quarter, 1 ticket was issued. Now take into consideration that these are not, this doesn't include all the warnings, okay? So that the warnings were in my original report to council for information purposes. So in conclusion, Officer Kramer and myself are going to continue to try and work towards maintaining a safer community, enforcing the policies, and addressing all requests for service in a timely manner, providing education and enforcement when needed. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Officer Leach. I believe Councillor Ramadas has a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Have a question here. Where are we with backyard hen licenses? Did we issue any this year at all?
Officer Kramer has been working on that, so it hasn't moved forward the way that we thought it would regarding that. So if you'd like to wait, then Officer Kramer would be able to provide you with more accurate information than what I could at this point. That's kind of his baby.
Thank you, Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had two questions.
Yes.
The first one, I don't know if that's working or not. The first one, in the chart for business licenses processed, it had second quarter 95, but verbally you just seemed to indicate there were 95 new. Does that number 95 represent 95 new businesses, or does that represent all the business licenses processed, including renewals?
Let me just go back and take a look at my original report. So 95 processed.
So not necessarily new licenses taken out. Excuse me, that would represent all of the licenses, including renewals. All right.
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question I had was, what was up with the giant number on recycling service requests in May?
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting. So unfortunately, we weren't able to obtain information for 2023, but we've worked out with Green for Life, and they've now been able to provide us information. So their system that they have actually has a camera on the machine. And so when it picks up the bin, it's able to record the number. That number is associated to the resident. And as it dumps the recycling into the truck, the driver is able to see on a camera what items were not supposed to be in there. So now we're just starting to generate this information so that we can really see where the problems are. And it is so many that Joanna Line has kind of taken that part over, because we're going to be doing some more education and stuff. I don't think people are quite understanding or grasping the concept of what can and cannot go in the recycle bin. We have handed out information pamphlets. It is definitely something that we're going to continue to struggle on for a while. But yeah, so that's where that information came from. And so you're going to see that in the third quarter and the fourth quarter as well. Because now, like I said, we're being able to collect that data.
Thank you. So just for clarity, what you're saying is the vast majority of those requests for service have been generated internally in an effort to improve the ongoing system.
Well, what it is we received a request from GFL. So GFL was concerned about the amount of non-recycled items that were going into the bin. So that's where the request for service comes into play. So it wasn't something that we knew about. They just came to us and they said, hey, like, we're really seeing some high numbers, and this might be something that we need to monitor and to address.
Okay, thank you.
CAO Bornowski.
Thank you. If I may, Council, you may recall some communications from Ms. Line about contamination and requirements to reduce contamination of recycling as part of the Recycle BC program. This is one of the efforts to reduce that. And the vast majority, as in almost the entirety of these, issues that are noted and tracked are simply stretchy plastics and plastic bags in recycling. So we can solve this by reminding people not to put those stretchy bags and plastic bags in the recycling bins. But it is an effort ongoing.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Officer Leach, I just wanted to ask you if you've maybe got any strategies or plans with the organics having rolled out, especially I guess in line with the recycling kind of issues that we're having. Are you sort of anticipating being pretty busy with that?
Yeah, we're definitely preparing because this is our first time having it introduced into our community. And so, we definitely have some current concerns and some more education moving forward. We have Wild Safe BC that have been doing some great monitoring and stuff for us and documenting some areas of concern for sure. And I think it's just going to be a matter of the public getting used to it. And hopefully everything will start to move more smoothly. But at this point in time, we don't have much to go on yet. So, but we are preparing, but we're crossing our fingers for sure.
Thank you.
CAO Bornowski, and then we'll get to you guys.
If I made a Councillor Audie Kelly's question as well, Ms. Line has prepared a education through to enforcement policy to back up the new penalties in the bylaw so that we're not jumping directly into penalties for people who are contaminating their organics. And so it's tracking contaminated recycling or organics, and then both for recycling, I think, and organics, but then stepping through, when do you get your letter? When do you get another warning? When do we skip a service and send you, hand deliver and mail you a letter? And then when do you pay a fine? And so you'll see a progression coming forward in the near future.
Thank you, CAO. Councillors Hamilton, then Ramadas.
Thank you. So just for my own clarification, when we're talking about waste tickets issued, is that around garbage bins and being put out on the street early and whatnot?
Yeah, that's essentially it's a section 3.6, which is the essentially it's the improper storage of waste. So it can be anything like them having their garbage in it and it being placed not necessarily out to curb, but outside so that it is accessible to wildlife. So the majority of tickets that I've written are under section 3.6.
And then the second part of my question is looking at your what is it called? Seasonal enforcement policy priorities. Sorry, I don't see waste and garbage receptacles available to the public anywhere in there. Is that my oversight, or what would be the procedure to get that included in there?
We can definitely add that. For us, it's ongoing. So even though the bears hibernate in the winter, things like that, we still do have other wildlife that do not hibernate. So solid waste is something that we're continuously working on. But we can definitely put it in there.
Thank you.
Councilman Ramadas, thanks for your patience.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just changing gears a little bit, have a question on the short-term rentals. I see that that's one of your top priority areas. Kudos to you guys. One question I do have is, I remember in the past, you guys had were talking about the non-compliance or sorry, the licenses issued for short-term rentals and how many of them are unauthorized, and having a good understanding of the delta between how many you have issued versus the rentals that you're seeing online and things like those. Has that issue gotten any better at all?
Well, that's a great question. So Officer Kramer and myself, we've actually, each of us have logged into the online account, the Granicus account, 440 and 450 times in 1 year to continually monitor. It looks like things have stabilized quite a bit. We're finding far less non-compliant short-term rental properties now. So that's coming along good. People are now, it seems like they're getting used to the idea of of having this opportunity, and they want to seize it, but they're starting to actually realize that they have a process to follow and that they have to apply for a business license application. So it's been actually doing quite well.
Just wanted to say good job.
Thank you. Officer Kramer does have a very detailed short-term rental report that he will be bringing forward to council at some point in time.
I look forward to that. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Some great initiatives here. I really like them. The bylaw buddy program, I saw you coming out of the Isabella Dickin last year, and looks really good. Is that just limited to grade 1, or does that go to other grades as well? And I know that you're stressed for capacity, but just curious about that.
Yeah, that's my, that is my favorite thing to do for sure. It's a great opportunity to reach out into the public, to do some education, and have a positive persona with the community, which is great. It really works to help us. So I did grades kindergarten 1 through 6 last year, and this year I've done grades 2 and 3. And then recently we had a booth set up to talk about animal responsibility and give people an opportunity to ask questions. And I believe I spoke to over 75 people. So, and of course, the majority of them were kids. But honestly, I feel like the kids are at higher risk of having a negative, interaction with animals because they don't know and they don't understand. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I think that it's something that I would like to expand more on. And I will be going back into the schools again, hopefully in October. And with that, I usually take WildSafe BC with me. And we use that opportunity to also address wildlife attractants and the proper storage of their garbage as well.
Awesome. If you ever need a wingman, let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Councillor Ramadas.
Just more of a procedural question here. I would really like to know how many licenses we issued for backyard hen. So, and I don't want to wait till Q3. How do I get the answer?
CIO.
If you give me 5 minutes, I'll confirm.
We have not, Officer Kramer and myself have not issued any. I can tell you that just from in our department, at least.
All right.
Having completed the research, 0.
All right. If that's all, thank you, Officer Leach.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship and members of council.
Have a good evening. Moving on, we have a planning quarterly report from Manager of Planning Similini.
Director's shoes are much too big for me to fill, Your Worship.
Clown shoes are also really big, so.
Thank you. I don't have a presentation tonight. Generally, these come forward as correspondence only, but I did want to speak a little bit to the quarterly or bi-quarterly report. I guess there's 2 quarters here. So again, this goes up to the end of June. So a lot of things that have happened in the last few months aren't on this report. But for the first 6 months of 2024, we intook 77 building permit applications. Those are for building permits only. 18 plumbing permits, 5 solid fuel burning applications, and 5 demolition permits. And that's a total of 105 permits for our building officials to process. On the planning side, for planning statistics, we had 18 development variance permits, 10 development permits, 19 hazard lands development permits, 9 sign applications, 8 subdivision applications, 4 bylaw amendments, and we note that those are going to drop way off. I mean, 4 isn't very many for the year anyways, but given our small scale multi-unit housing zoning, we'll see those drop off in the next little while. And then 1 watercourse protection development permit. I estimate that, given the amount of hours it takes, staff hours it takes to process, for example, on the development permit side, say an average of 5 to 6 hours per permit, not including the subdivisions and bylaw amendments that typically take longer. That's essentially a half-time position just on those alone, without looking at any other planning work that we're doing with the city. So just some interesting statistics. We can break down those numbers a little bit more in our next quarterly report, just to bring a little bit more context to it. But again, I just wanted to present the report for you to have a look at and then answer any questions.
Councillor Amadas? Oh, yep, Councillor Hamilton then.
Thank you. Just curious, looking at, we've got the comparable of value last year to this year. We've got the total number of permits this year. Is the decrease a relation to the number of permits this year versus last year, or is it more of a value of project type differential?
Through to Councillor Hamilton, looking at those numbers, I mean, it's over $5 million this year, as opposed to over 20 million last year. But it's 47 permits issued this year compared to 49. So the number of permits is close to the same. The number of work that goes into those permits could be close to the same. So it's really, I'd say, related to the value of the projects that are coming through.
Councilman Rambadas?
Thanks, Your Worship. It was a similar question here. Has small-scale multi-unit housing had any effect at all on these numbers, or is it still working through the systems?
Through to Councillor Amadas, I mean, with small-scale multi-unit housing having been adopted in June, it wouldn't be reflected in this report because it wasn't adopted until the end of June. But I can comment that we haven't seen any. We've heard rumblings of some projects coming forward for small-scale multi-unit housing, which we're looking forward to. But we haven't seen any applications come through. I think what we will see again is that decrease in like rezoning applications. We're not going to see any more R1 SL zoning applications coming through. The zone isn't a thing anymore, right? So we'll see that decrease, and then that'll, with a hope that will increase staff's capacity to work on other long-term planning issues.
Councillor Audia Kelly?
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Manager Similini, I just wanted to ask how things were looking with the work you did with McElhaney and how you're feeling about that. And have you made progress with like your software stuff that you wanted to do and that kind of thing?
Yeah, through to Councillor Audia Kelly. Really good question. Again, if we're looking at the first 2 quarters, not a whole lot to report there besides what the work that had already been done. But more recently, I actually did a little bit of an analysis on the McElhaney development approvals report, and looked at, there was 7 main areas that they were looking at. And we've actually done work on all 7 of those areas without actually focusing. I mean that plan is something that really you need to sit down and come up with budget and a work plan to really go through it. But just in the work that we've done with things like permit tracking software, we've updated our website. We're in the process of hiring another planner. We've actually touched on all 7 of those items, which is good. So I can we have sent out a really high level note to the development community, including the Canadian Home Builders Association. So I can distribute that note to council. I believe it went to Mayor Milligan as well, but with him being away, he may not have distributed that. So we can distribute that note to council, and then that'll come through our communications as well through our website for the community to read up on. Secondary to that, the development intake and approvals software, that process is going really well. On October 22nd, we'll be coming back to council with a recommendation for software. So last week we had 3 vendor demos that we went through. And working with McElhaney, we were able to grade the demos, grade the proposals that came through, and we're working on finalizing a recommendation to move forward with the software provider.
Councillor Nixon?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. just want to make a comment. The delegation bylaw is the gift that keeps on giving. 208 hours of staff time is not trivial. And a question as well. I just had, you know, I don't get approached very often on the street, but I was approached, and it was from a guy, a builder in our community, and he was here for the Development Approvals Enhancement Project in February of 2023 in this room. And he was at the point where he was going to lay off some people. And so, you know, I was a little bit taken aback, and I just was I'm just curious, you know, where is our backlogs and the delays in this entire process? I know it's going to get better. I trust in you guys that it's going to get better, but I need to know these answers on the street as well. So thanks.
Yeah, through to Councillor Nixon. I believe I know who that individual was. We actually had a meeting with them earlier today, I believe. And we did send some communication back and forth as to where their projects were. In that case, and in many cases, we talk about incomplete applications and needing to take time. And lots of times with these applications, there's a back and forth. And lots of the time, that's not necessarily appreciated by everyone of how much time it takes. For example, if we get an application in the floodplain, but they have not supplemented that application with a hazard lands development permit, which is required for development in the floodplain, the application goes back and there's a back and forth, right? So I mean, in the spirit of like coming up with timelines and things like that, it makes it difficult because we have no control over how long that application goes back, how long it's with that applicant. So it makes it literally impossible for us to quote a timeline when it might be with them for 1 week, it might be with them for 6 weeks. Like we don't know, and that's not specific to the individual you're talking about, just in general, right? That being said, we're working hard to issue permits. I mean, looking at these quarterly numbers, you look at 77 building permit applications brought in, 47 issued. That leaves 30 permits to keep processing in that next quarter. So essentially, you're bringing in not quite, but let's say double the amount of applications that we can currently issue. So I know that our development team and our building officials are working through it. We've brought in another casual employee to help us get through some of those permits, and that's helped to speed things up a little bit. But really, it's hard to put any sort of statistics on it. I mean, the development permit software will help us get those numbers, but I think it'll also help us to issue permits as well.
Councilman Ramadus?
Thanks, Your Worship. I think these reports have gotten better and better. Good work there. I think the piece that is always missing is the turnaround time. You've got number of units and total dollar values, but the council keeps asking, have we gotten better in terms of turnaround time? Like if there was some metric as to, you know, when someone puts in an application to the time they get the permit, just a crude number to begin with would be super helpful. And I'm hoping the more times you start showing those improvements, there'll be fewer and fewer questions from the council.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So through to Councillor Ramadus, again, those turnaround times, unless we're keeping track of an actual like a chess clock where we have the application, we're handling it, and then it gets passed back to the applicant, and there's a back and forth. It's really hard to track those turnaround times and get an accurate number to council. I mean, we could, if permit tracking software is going to help because it actually will keep track of who is in charge of the permit and for how long. So we'll actually be able to say the average amount of a time for development permit issuance is 6 weeks. That's spent 3 weeks with the city of Fernie and 3 weeks with the applicant, or whatever the case might be, right? But again, it's hard, and it compounds, right? When you have several different applications that you're looking at, and you have to do extra work to get them done, everything in line behind that takes longer.
Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Manager Similini, I just wanted to, this is kind of like sharing and an ask. Some of us attended the What's Next for Housing session at UBCM, which I thought was excellent. And the lady from the BC Home Builders, she was fantastic. She just like called it like it was. I actually was telling councillors Ramadas and Shoesmith, too bad you're not here because you would have loved to listen to her. But one of the things she said was a lot of municipalities and local governments are really overburdened by the continuous changes. There were like 3 or 4 major changes within a very short period of time, plus the deadline to get the bylaws done and all those things. And she said that departments are overwhelmed and building officials are overwhelmed. And a couple of municipalities that I was sitting with, including our neighbors, were saying how they're struggling to keep building officials and how tough it is out there for folks with all these changes. And one of the recommendations that the lady from BC Builders made was to, and I know that I just said that they're too overburdened and really busy, but that it would be very good to have your building official come to speak to council to just educate council a bit on what their process is like, what they go through, the workload that they're facing, help us to understand our climate zones and things like that. So if it would be at all possible, I think that would be great to be able to hear from them in the future, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Audia Kelly. I should mention as well that we did meet with, it was on last week, we met with the Canadian Home Builders Association, the executive director of this region from Kamloops was in town. So we had a good chance to meet in person, had a really good conversation, and we're looking forward to continuing a relationship with them to improve our processes and keep everyone in the loop.
It'd be great to hear from our building officials. I believe Councillor, I can't remember, Councillor Ramadas and then Hamilton, sorry. I lost track of things.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to be harsh on the turnaround time. I understand, it's not fully automated and you have a software coming through. I appreciate that. But I also appreciate the complexity, right? Like we are steep zone, there's lots of things going on with our with the complexities of each of the permits that we are issuing here. I understand that. But only thing that I would urge is that question is not going to go away. It'll keep coming back. One of the councillors will be asking that question, have we gotten better in terms of turnaround or not? So I just want to, set it as a caution to the staff.
Thanks for your patience, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I was just going to kind of echo what Councillor Ramadas is speaking about. It would be very beneficial for us and just understanding and getting that communication out there. Like, I know you kind of jokingly talked about the chess timer, but if we knew that the delays were starting to stack up on our end, then we could work on those processes. But if we start noticing that the delays are actually, it takes us a week to get everything through, and then it could be a week, it could be 6 weeks, as you said, that it's in the developer applicant's hand. Well, that's some metrics, that's some communication that we can say, actually, we are efficient, we are doing things as fast as we can. The problem lies in how these applicants are being delivered to us, that they're incomplete and whatnot. So I do think that would actually be a very beneficial thing to try and track, and hopefully this new software will allow us to pull those reports quickly.
Yeah, and through to Councillor Hamilton and Councillor Ramadas, I think that's one thing that we'd be looking at. Like, for example, right now, if I'm asked to take a look at a file and try to figure out what happened with it or why it took so long, we just don't have the tracking system that makes it easy to do that right now, right? So I'm essentially going through emails or whatever the case might be, and typing or writing things down to get a timeline, and that takes a lot of staff time, and the amount of time that takes away from our ability to actually fix the system that's broken, that we're trying to fix, right? So there's definitely a bit of a balancing act, but I do know that the permit tracking software we were looking at literally timestamps every bit of communication that comes through between the applicant and the city. So that's really important, and it'll allow you to just generate those reports automatically, right? So that's really good news, and it allow us to take accountability and the building community to take accountability as well.
Further questions from council? CAO?
If I can, I think council's point is well made. We need to be able to tell the story of when an application comes in at the point it's considered complete, and we need to also take some ownership that we have to stop allowing incomplete applications to waste our time. Because anybody who's worked with a database knows if you put garbage data in, you just get garbage out. And that's not to say that the applications are garbage, but it's to say if we aren't holding ourselves accountable to saying that's not ready for me to look at yet, then we're going to take too long and we're going to frustrate people. So I think as important as tracking, I think ensuring that we have a good responsible gate for accepting applications with appropriate fees and appropriate supports in terms of information to support the community, where we'll come out ahead of the game. That's why I'm excited to see some of the other deliverables as much as the system, such as the guidebooks from that LGDAP project. And I would say it's been a really interesting year as well. We've had a few very large, very complex multifamily projects, one of which was pulled at building permit issuance. And so all of the time to get through a hazard lands development permit and to talk about density and to look at development permits and building permits and prioritize that based on council's priority of looking at affordable and rental housing and you know, if something is brought up that priority and we spend such significant time to then have that frozen was a big drain on resources. And sometimes that happens. The downside is some people building houses had to wait while we actioned that as a priority. And then you come out of it having a project that the developer discovers is non-viable. And so that speaks a little bit to the local builders who are very concerned that we wait until we issue a hazard lands development permit before looking at a building permit. And this was an example of where we were trying to do those two things in tandem. When we spent all this time on a building permit and a hazard lands development permit, only to discover that all of that time was for naught when there were some really big critical issues that we couldn't get past yet. And so the whole thing has to come back again significantly changed before we look at it. So it's big and it's messy at times, but I do appreciate council's patience on. I appreciate that council has the patience to listen and think about that complexity, because it's not universal and it is noted, and so are the frustrations of the community, the building community, the developer community, which we're trying to meet.
Thank you, CAO. Further questions from council? Yeah, I certainly sympathize with people stuck waiting in the queue. That's quite a burden on them. However, I also understand, you know, the sheer wall of tasks you guys are up against. And I do appreciate that in the midst of that, we're making the effort to go through the LGDAP and all that to try and make this a better situation. It's a big ship and it'll turn slowly. And I appreciate the effort as much as we're on your case. Thank you. Oh, Councilman Ramadas.
Sorry, just occurred to me. One last question, and I'll shut up afterwards. Yeah, I know LGDAP is going through, and we are working towards a finished product and of some sort. Is there opportunity to kind of pick few things within that you can start implementing right away instead of waiting till the entire process? You know, you're fully satisfied with your finished product, like.
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Ramadas. Yeah, the way the document is staged, it's staged in there's 7 large items, which really are cultural shifts as far as it goes. Once everything's said and done, there are ways that people look at applying and ways that we handle them as a city, and it's massive. It's a massive change, right? But those 7 items are broken down into sort of short-term, medium-term, and long-term working goals. Unfortunately, the short-term ones are labeled as quick wins in the report. And I think there's a perception that a quick win means it's something we can just do. And really it does take a lot of work. When I distribute the list to council, I actually, again, touched on listed items in that report that we've either addressed or in the process of addressing. So there are certain things we've done. I mean, a really good example is we know we're working in a broken system right now, but we have updated our entire website to go through the process of applying for a building permit. And if you need a hazard lands permit, if you need an architect for your project, those sorts of things, to just sort of give the building community the ability to understand how our current system works, even though it's not great. We know we have to do it right now until we've had the chance to fix it through the software and things like that, right? So, I mean, there's an example. I don't want to go on too much and list them all off the top of my head. I think what we'll do is distribute that list to council and give you the opportunity to have a read, and then we can maybe address that later meeting.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
And one final question from Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Manager Similini, you mentioned adding someone. Are we, like, is that imminent, or are we just in the process of interviewing and that kind of stuff?
Through to Councillor Audia Kelly, we're in the process of shortlisting, and we will be interviewing hopefully in the next few weeks here.
All right, thank you, Manager Similini. With that, I guess we can return to a regular meeting if somebody would make that motion. And a seconder? All in favor? Okay.
Sorry, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, could you advise who moved and seconded, please?
That was Councillor Audia Kelly and Councillor Ramadas.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I look to you for this item, or 7 would be stuff arising from committee of the whole.
There is no business until item 9, which is the
Yes, although I would say that we touched on perhaps, is there something, hang on, let me get my words together.
There are no resolutions or actions that are coming out of committee.
Yes, except that it was suggested perhaps a reporter look into our hearing from our building officials. Is that something we would need to action here and now, or is that something that can come back later?
Mr. Bornas, would like to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Acting Mayor and Council, if you're wanting to provide specific direction, do so by resolution, and then we know clearly what you want. Otherwise, it's essentially chat, and we'll consider it among our available workload and what we can do. But if you require something specific, it should come by resolution.
Okay. Councillor Audia Kelly, you were the one mentioning that. Thoughts?
If I may, I did capture that specific conversation, and I shared that directly with Manager Similini through messaging, and I'm sure he'll be taking that to his team. But if council wishes to do an action, they can do.
I don't think we would need to do so then. Thank you. Moving on to item 9. Delegations and other presentations. We have the Fieldhouse Society.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. We appreciate your time this evening to receive our delegation. I'm Anthony McAwee, and with me I've got Aisha Haynes as a part of our delegation this evening. Just as a refresh, our stated purpose is to support the physical, mental, and economic and social well-being in the Elk Valley by funding, building, and operating a recreational and gathering facility. Our work has come about as a result of the closure of the community centre, but is not designed to replace it. Our 3 asks this evening are to update Mayor and Council, or Deputy Mayor and Council, on the progress made to date, to request a funding confirmation and an agreement in principle to enter into a long-term 10-year lease agreement. Since our last presentation, the front-running building style has become the fabric-covered steel structure, or sprung style as it may have been referred to. Members of our team have toured facilities such as the Edge Hockey School in Calgary, who have 3 of these facilities, 2 for gym and dryland training, as well as even dancing, and another for the ice arena, as well as a pickleball facility next to McMahon Stadium in Calgary. We have learned about more from further afield, including in many similar climates and snow loads, etc. Whilst we haven't ruled out other building types, the pros seem to outweigh the cons at this point. You can see on the images on the screen here, many of these facilities include multi-use areas, things like dryland training and storage, as you can see in these photos. A number of different truss styles are available from the various manufacturers. Initial indications we have is that due to our snow and wind load, a variant of the top two truss styles in the top left-hand corner is likely required. That would maximize our wall height, so the usable space, if you compare it to the more semicircular looking truss styles, whilst at the same time working within the maximum permissible height on the site, which we understand is 43.4 feet. There's just a couple of renderings here on the screen that you can see some of the different shapes and what they might look like in terms of the entrances and doors, etc. And here we have a diagram. I know there were some questions last time about how they get constructed. So on here, there is literally a step-by-step showing that the initial step is surveying the area and anchoring bases, which I'll talk a little bit later. They assemble the frames on the ground. Then using cranes, they start to lift them and put them together essentially. And as a last step, put the fabric across to create the roof, with the final piece just being the ends and doors and various other apparatus being added. Features of the facility that we're proposing: a 90 by 200 multi-use gym floor surface at completion. In real terms, that is up to 6 pickleball courts, a couple of basketball courts, 4 volleyball courts, 1 netball court, 1 or 2 soccer pitches, depending on what size you play on. Utilizing pretty close to the maximum height that would be on that site. Most of the firms that we've been speaking to would be within 1 or 2 feet of the maximum height. There would be hanging dividers to allow multi-use simultaneously, full lighting and HVAC package to allow for use in all seasons. There is a potential for dryland and weight training, depending on how big a facility that we build. Roll-up maintenance doors would allow potentially the city's own events stage to be rolled in using a pickup truck or something along that lines. There would potentially be a designated walking track with painted gym surface. And we have been in discussions with staff about the potential for dedicated washroom, shower, locker room space, etc. As we've noted before, anchors, not foundations, are required. There has been some discussion around the amount of site remediation that might be required at that site, given the history of what that was used for. And we do note that the daycare is having to do fairly extensive remediation work, but we are hopeful with that anchor style remediation and the utilization of the existing asphalt pad, that the amount of soil disturbance could be minimized. The anchors themselves are basically pins that are attached to some kind of footing, whether that be a screw pile, a small concrete footing. There's lots of different types that you can use. We're at a bit of a chicken and egg in the sense that we need to engage an engineer to tell us exactly what's required based on the wind and primarily wind load at that particular site. But obviously we will be trying to reduce those remediation costs where possible. In terms of dealing with the elements, one of our suppliers has elements in constructing these down to -34, and has suggested from an insulation perspective, a liner is actually the best route to head towards, because using insulation can be somewhat of a challenge in the sense that they do condensate, and then the insulation can take on board some of that moisture. But he said that there is, well, that particular supplier has mentioned that there's absolutely no issue in heating these facilities to pretty comfortable 21 degrees or the like, whatever temperate climate we choose to set it to for gym usage. The benefits of the facility, significantly larger than the community centre. I think we mentioned in the last meeting, it was roughly 377% larger. Multiple user groups can occupy the space simultaneously, which is a big difference between the community centre and this. As an example, you could have 3 pickleball courts running at the same time as a full basketball court. Like I mentioned before, there would be an intent to have hanging dividers so that it would be easy to transform the facility, if you like, from a full facility to variants of that quite quickly. Public drop-in access would be possible due to the increased size and the amount of additional space. And it is absolutely our intent to create a public drop-in opportunity, something that isn't possible in any of the other gym-like spaces that currently or previously operated in the city, including the community centre. And washrooms could be constructed inside the building if you extended the length of the building. So there is an opportunity there to perhaps get some increased bang for our buck by using the same building envelope as opposed to separate buildings. All of that would consequently help us to host larger tournaments, increasing local revenue or business revenue locally. Things like Stokefest, Mountain Film Festival, etc., could theoretically increase their attendee numbers, depending on what occupancy we're given once we're complete. And all of these structures are engineering certified, building and fire code compliant. They're expandable in terms of length. Obviously, like I said in the last meeting, once you decide the width, you can't really change that, but you can absolutely continue to add additional trusses and make the building as long as you want to. Custom graphics and colors are available. One of the suppliers I was just talking to today was talking about one that they're constructing in Hawaii with all sorts of very cool graphics on the side that make it blend into the environment that it's being constructed in. Cost to construct. So this is really in line with what we initially spoke about. I'd say probably the one thing I'd call out is that the building initially we'd indicated was somewhere between $450 and $950. As we're in more extensive conversations with some of these suppliers, we are finding we're probably in the top half of that $450 to $950 in terms of the cost of the building itself, as they're taking a closer look at the snow and wind loading requirements in the Fernie area. So I would caution that the $450 is probably an unrealistic number now, but between $750 and $950 certainly is. Site servicing, installation and HVAC, in and around the $250 number. A gym floor is around $500,000 at a 90-foot width. That would obviously fluctuate depending on how wide we actually construct the building. And there has been conversations about washrooms and concession being included, which I believe staff had indicated that was initially budgeted at $750. We're not really sure the cost of constructing those washrooms yet. If at some point in the future deconstruction is required, they do go down as quickly as they get put up, depending on how much stuff is constructed inside them. One of the suppliers indicated 11 days was the erection period of time that it takes to construct them. In our original plan, I just want to highlight that washrooms. That was a discussion that we had recently. Originally, we had planned to piggyback off the aquatic center and if needed, use a trailer style system. It has been indicated to us that it could theoretically be a condition of funding that we construct washrooms from the outset. Whilst that is better than an in-kind contribution, which was suggested, it does significantly increase our initial project budget and potentially mean that the project takes longer to kick off. Operating cost, we're estimating somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 a year based on comparable data. The Vernon Pickleball facility, for example, costs around $300,000 a year and is significantly larger. So we're estimating that will be lower in terms of that. Our revenue projection is around $150,000 based on the space being larger and the ability to accommodate both simultaneous and walk-in revenue. And we will be balancing revenue versus community access in a similar way to the current user fee bylaw, which whilst we wouldn't follow the city bylaw, which we understand can't be extended to private facilities anyway, we would absolutely intend to develop an equitable, inclusive booking policy based on key elements of it in consultation with the city staff to ensure that there is fairness in the process. There will be additional complexities in a facility of this size, including the ability to book the entire complex, half or even thirds at a time. Okay, we will need to think carefully in order to develop a policy which enables the most amount of prime time space is available as possible. There's been lots of public support, and in your package, you'll see the letters of support, so I won't touch on those. To get to the nuts and bolts, we are asking for an urgent funding commitment in order to secure other funding. In our meetings with other partners, they have clearly stated there will be a lack of support or no support at all if the city isn't supporting in a meaningful manner. Whilst we acknowledge there are many competing priorities for the city funding right now, this is an important item in the strategic plan, OCP, and most recent citizen survey. It is conceivable this doesn't go ahead. It is unlikely there's another solution in the next 5 years, maybe longer. Our user groups alone include over 1,500 participants, or around a quarter of your citizens. We would respectfully ask that you consider all funding options to you, including those that have less strings and approvals attached. We would submit that a $500,000 contribution as a one-time cost would be sub $200 per household, or that on a 5-year loan basis, it would represent around a 0.7% tax increase when you consider the city of Fernie portion only represents half a resident's tax bill. If we do not receive a firm funding commitment, we are at a standstill as we cannot raise funds elsewhere without this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, questions from council? I'll give you guys a minute. I'm sure there's lots. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just wondering about the timeline and like, we did this tonight. When could you have this up and running?
Depending on the manufacturer, they're indicating that the time to manufacture the structure is between 1 and 6 months. We obviously need to line up other funding partners, and we're in active dialogue with other funding partners who have indicated an appetite to participate, but not without city participation. Then obviously we need to work with city staff on permitting and the various other agreements that we need to come up with. Hard to say is the short one.
Further questions? Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a question, but it may not actually be for the delegation. What I'm wondering is, should we reach a memorandum of understanding with regarding the funding, and then the groups are unable to achieve the funding levels that they were looking forward to move forward, what will happen to the commitment? How will that process work? That might be a CIO or a director.
That's a really good question.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Council, you could draft a memorandum of understanding or a commitment letter that confirmed funding of up to X be provided upon successful financing of the remainder of the facility. And so we would then need to encumber or commit those funds somehow, and then hold them until such a date as we knew whether the remainder of the funds were able to be raised for the project. I'd ask Director Burdett on whether he's put thought to what that kind of a process would look like, but I don't think we're quite there. No, not yet.
Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up then, I guess part of the question would be, for situations that like this before, have we done this before where there's sort of a conditional commitment based on further parties committing, et cetera, et cetera? Is that something that's typical? Oh, that's right. The international worker thing. Yeah, they weren't waiting for us for the money though.
We should probably share that with the floor.
Yeah, sorry.
I can add, Your Worship. I think we did something similar for the International Worker Permit Program. I forget the acronym, but.
To my recollection, we did.
Okay, then if I can just follow up, finally, Deputy Mayor, and that is, this would be a question back to the delegation is, I'd be curious to know from the feedback that they've received from the potential funding partners, that the memorandum of understanding of the city committing and encumbering the funds, is that sufficient to bring them to the table to feel comfortable about committing funds? Is that the expectation that they have?
Yes, that would absolutely be sufficient. We don't technically need the cash in the bank. We just need a commitment in writing that we can take to those funding partners. Some of them are corporate funding partners who are more from a philosophical perspective looking for a commitment. Others are grant opportunities that we simply can't apply for unless we have matching funds.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Do we, I put my hand up before I fully formulated the thought. That $500,000, does that need to be as a cash contribution, or the fact that we would be leasing the land, we'd be supplying, I don't know what else would the city would actually be contributing as far as tangible assets to that? Does that value factor into that $500,000?
So in-kind was discussed with staff, and the challenge we have with that is both the corporate funding partners we're talking to as well as the grant opportunities don't value in-kind contributions in the same way, although I appreciate that's a valuable piece of land in the center of town. So it's not to say that no in-kind could be considered, but certainly the lion's share needs to come from some form of cash contribution. And the other challenge we have is around the potential RMI funding necessitating the inclusion of washrooms. That takes us from a $1.4 million-ish project to needing $2 million. So as opposed to our original ask being 500 of 1.4, then we have a larger gap to close. Sorry.
Yeah, just to add in there, to be clear, an in-kind contribution is counted with respect to the total project budget, which is important. Funding partners do have limitations on how much their funding can be with respect to the gross value of the project, so the total project. So those in-kind contributions are valuable with ensuring that outside partners' contributions meet their maximum amounts. But when they come to the actual cash contributions, matching funds and things like that, then in-kind and volunteer hours and such are not counted towards matching funds. It does actually have to be a liquid contribution rather than in-kind. Thank you.
Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Your Acting Worship. Can I ask CAO or Director Burdett, whichever applies, to elaborate on that RMI funding piece, please?
If I may, Deputy Mayor and Council, there's a large section of my presentation and follow-up report. Can we keep it to that? And I'll present on the report that follows the delegation presentation, if that's okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. You mentioned a couple places in the report and in your presentation about dismantling it in the future to move it or whatnot. I'm curious if you've asked if there are any essentially secondhand units being dismantled elsewhere that we might acquire.
We absolutely did. There are units that exist on the rental market, but when you go and look at the financial numbers of renting them, I think one of the crowds I spoke to wanted $300,000 up front and 20 grand a month. You start to pretty quickly get to the point where you think, why on earth would you rent it and not just buy it? Because the ROI is pretty short. And we did inquire with other facilities around the place that have been using these for longer. And basically the feedback we got was that no one was decommissioning them.
Further questions? Councillor Amadas.
Just wanted to commend your worship. Thanks for all the effort and the energy and momentum. We've had lots of conversations, myself, my colleagues and others at the council as well as off council. Really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. I'm waiting for CAO Barnowski's report there and then we'll have more conversations, I believe.
Thank you.
I think that's all. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One last question. During your presentation, there was indications that the operating costs would be looking at somewhere up to about 200K per year. But the projected income for leasing and rentals and usage and so on was about 150. I'm just wondering if your groups that in this have discussed how that delta will get dealt with.
So maybe I shall want to add to this, but we certainly have indicated that it would be an expectation there'd be some form of contribution from the city to run the facility.
As an ongoing operating cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And we note the community centre, I think, was 105,000 a year that the city was spending on operating the community centre. I also think the 150 is a pretty conservative estimate from a revenue perspective. When you consider, I think there was 66,000 or something of revenue coming out of the community centre. It was quarter of the space or close enough to a quarter of the space. It couldn't be rented simultaneously. The rate per hour was very low. I think you'd fairly quickly get to a much higher number than the 150, but we're planning for the worst and hoping for the best. I think from a budget perspective, maybe Aisha wants to add to that.
There are also a number of grant opportunities that we continue to track that can be used to offset operating expenses, such as staffing and maintenance of facilities like this. So we do also expect to be able to bring in ongoing grant opportunities to make up some of that shortfall. And as Anthony mentioned, we tried to be extremely conservative with the revenue. The space is much larger. It can be used more simultaneously. Tournament bookings alone could possibly make up that $50,000 shortfall.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Just in the train of thought of the finances, if the facility were to become revenue positive and start generating a profit on an annual basis, how would those funds be used?
There's
Good
a
question.
problem.
I'll get Aisha to answer that.
Oh, extra money. Yeah, no, I mean, there are, I don't want to say unlimited, but we all do live in Fernie. There are nearly unlimited opportunities for improvement and expansion. I believe climbing walls have been brought up, dryland training, existing things, live streaming, new scoreboards. There are all sorts of improvements. The facility that we are talking about constructing is what is needed, certainly meets the current requirements and what the facility, what the community has needed. The community center was over full before. So we have no issues with believing that we're going to have a very, very full use load of the facility, but that does not mean that it is, you know, the most prime fancy. It is not the Ferrari version of a facility like this. There are many, many improvements that can be made that we would have no problem utilizing profits for that. I mean, and you know, surfing, trips to Bali. That's what we're going to do.
I'd also just add that from a planning perspective, we haven't gone through a full process of a facility replacement reserve study. The fabric, depending on which supplier you talk to, is theoretically going to need replacement between 15 and 20 years. So I think it would be sensible to think from a financial perspective, although there might be an operating surplus, it might be just need to be reinvested back into that facility.
I like that thinking. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship, or Deputy Mayor. I just want to reiterate what Councillor Ramadas said is thank you so much for all your work on this. It's been, I know how many hours it's probably been, and the entire working group has been fantastic. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, if that's all, thank you very much. Moving forward, we have CAO Boranowski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If it's okay, I'll present from the seat because I've got the laptop here handy. Although I'm presenting the report was largely developed by the team of staff who have been meeting and reflecting upon information from the Fieldhouse Society. So I just want to recognize that it's a team effort. It's provided primarily as a follow-up from the original Committee of the Whole direction to provide an update on information gathered to date that goes somewhat beyond that, and then to recommend some next steps for consideration by Council. In August, there was a presentation or delegation by the Society, the Committee of the Whole directed staff to meet with the Society to discuss the proposed community facility, which was completed, but then also bring back a report with further information regarding an agreement in principle, land use options, and financial information to the meeting here tonight. And so here we are with that information. It's laid out in the report along those essentially 3 items. I'll touch on those briefly and then provide some additional context for Council's consideration. On an agreement in principle, no formal agreements are being proposed at this time. However, it was noted in dialogue that both an initial capital contribution rather than just purely in kind and an unknown at this point, or at the point of writing in particular, operating funding contribution would be required for the project to become successful. A letter committing capital contributions could be drafted. Staff's recommendation is that we should wait until we confirm that some form of funds would be available, whether that is a confirmation that there's some form of support from our stakeholder community regarding the repurposing of Resort Municipality Initiative funds. I recognize the Executive Director for Tourism, Fernie, spoke very impassionedly about the importance of a community center or a field house. They've been away and we just haven't been able to undertake that consultation. So I'm seeking some direction from Council to advance that specifically. And then also, if operating funding is being provided, that would have to happen through some form of a partnering agreement. That essentially is a contract, and that could establish clarity on the city's involvement, our oversight, or our joint use or shared use agreements, up to and including what access fees or priority of use were. Those would be terms in that contract in exchange for the operating funding that the city would provide and the services that would then be provided by the Society in exchange for receipt of that funding, in the same way as we have conditions on our contracts or our partnering agreements with, say, the Historical Society or the Arts Council. In terms of land use options, Director McConnell worked with legal counsel and reviewed a number of options. A lease is recommended. It provides certainty of terms, and it provides exclusivity and occupation to the society better than a land use agreement would, or just a general service agreement would. It also provides some conditions in terms of defaults. If the land is used in a manner that is not intended through that agreement, so it provides some protection to the taxpayer of the city of Fernie. That's not to say that we have suspicions about the society. It's just one of the benefits of a lease. And then any disposition, whether it's a lease or a land use agreement or otherwise, of the public's interest in any of the property that the public owns, such as this, requires the same provision of notice. So the 2-week public notice and then something coming back to council is required. So it's no faster really to do a land use agreement or a different form of disposition than it is to do a lease. Of note, however, if the term is for more than 5 years, we need to be careful with language and commitments in that lease, because if it imposes future capital obligations on the city, we need approval of the electors, either through an alternative approval process or through a referendum. And so a lease extending beyond 5 years either must do so by way of a renewal at a 5-year point, in which case it's not obliged to be renewed if it commits us to capital obligations, or must be clear that it doesn't commit the taxpayer to future, or council to future capital obligations without first getting their approval for such. Financial information, if council is advancing the consideration, we are recommending first that consultation be conducted to explore the use of RMI funds. The reason being, these are municipal funds that are received to positively impact the visitor experience. We have a number of projects that are somewhat delayed for a number of reasons in our resort development strategy. These include the 2 that are delayed, or the 3 that are delayed, are outdoor washrooms, which were planned for this area, a welcome sign to match the new welcome sign by the Visitor Info Center, or VIC, at the other entrance to town, and some upgrades to the planters on the corners downtown. Specifically to the washrooms, the models that we had previewed before the pandemic are now wildly more expensive, as are the carrying costs. We simply don't have the budget to advance that solution, nor do we have the capacity to hire a designer and go through BPs and get servicing on our own at present to add outdoor washrooms to that facility. However, this facility, being the field house and a public outdoor accessible washroom, both require servicing in order to open. And so this would provide an opportunity to deliver on the problem we were trying to solve with this project, which is it's difficult to find public washrooms when you're there skating, playing volleyball, at the skate park, at the dirt jumps, riding the pump track, coming back from the trails. If the pool isn't open, it would provide capacity. Also, all of the servicing for water and power through the Zamboni structure has to be removed. So it's disconnected at present, and we don't have servicing that would allow this building to be built. So it's an opportunity to achieve 2 things with that amount of funding. The welcome sign, we've found it extreme challenge to find a really good potential plot of land where that sign could fit without a lot of variances and a lot of extra permits, or leasing land from private landowners. And additionally, the company that built our welcome sign went insolvent 3/4 of the way through that project, meaning we had to finish it up, and we had to go through another procurement process and find another builder, and probably rescope the cost of that sign significantly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before I say my question, I just want to say, on at least 3 occasions, I've seen people stop their cars and get out and take pictures of themselves in front of that sign. So it is awesome. That's not my question. With regards to the outdoor washrooms, the question I have is, previously, outdoor washroom facilities there would have supported people who are using the outdoors area, like the dirt jumps. If bathrooms are built into the field house, how will the dirt jump people access them if it's not open? So is it actually solving that problem?
Deputy Mayor and Council, the idea would be to provide funds, and that is a design challenge to the group building the facility. So are you creating a structure that has a concession with a door to the inside or a door to the outside, washrooms with doors on either side, so you can lock the inside when the facility is closed and they're not coming in to access them, but they can still be accessed from the outside if that's possible? It's a design challenge. There are publicly accessible washrooms attached to many facilities, but it's a matter of how you lock off access to the inside when they're open from the outside. Thank you. And then finally, downtown planters and performance lift. Downtown planters, the intent is to refurbish some of the planters downtown with benches. We just have had no capacity to get an RFP out and get designs and quotes coming back in. So that's a project that's been stalled. We would look to advance that potentially next year. However, given that we have other projects in the RDS, it is acceptable to reallocate those funds within the resort development strategy projects back and forth. A small performance lift of approximately $30,000 is provided to the municipality based on an increase in visitation. And in total, these projects together represent a little over $500,000 in potential funding that could be allocated to the field house. The reason I'm recommending that council provide direction to consult is that signals an interest in looking at the purpose of these funds and intentionally adjusting the resort development strategy to advance the field house as something that also has a visitor benefit. If council isn't of that mind, then I would look at other funding opportunities, and I would go ahead looking at how we refine these projects and rescope them for delivery. Consulting the DMO or Tourism Fernie is a good practice for this type of adjustment. It isn't necessary, but I think given Tourism Fernie's involvement with the society through the director, and given that the province would like to know if there's sector support, it's a good idea for us to communicate with them.
Councillor Audia Kelly, you had a question?
Yes, thanks, Your Acting Worship. CAO, I just wanted to confirm that the option with the use of the RMI funds and the other funds that you've suggested, will this have any impact to taxpayers currently, or, you know, like next year, will it increase our tax rate at all?
Thank you, Councillor Audia Kelly. No, this recommendation as a funding source is the one, as staff, I would recommend you look at first, because it doesn't have an impact on taxation. It is revenue that is meant to be under the municipality's discretion. And clearly we've heard how important this type of a facility is for tournaments and for visitation and the impact on the local economy. So it feels like a natural fit for the funding source, to my mind.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So what's the timeline on that consultation with our DMO?
Provided council provides direction to do so, I have drafted the initial outreach requesting a date to present to their board. It's ready to go to them by the end of the week, and then it is on them to try and find a place where we can fit within their calendar. Their executive director has been away, so it's not that they're slow. It's just we're waiting to get together.
Thank you. Carrying on.
Thank you. Oh,
I just have a comment to make. Just
go ahead.
Just feels very easy. I don't know how $500,000 asked and there's $500,000 here. So
a religious guy would say Providence. All right. Back to you, CAO.
the difficult stuff is coming, Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Shoesmith. I appreciate that we do need to consult with the tourism, although I believe you indicated that the control of the funds was not contingent on that consultation. But can we, should we choose to move forward? I think time is of the essence. So I guess what I'm asking is, can we make it quite clear that the consultation needs to be soon, as in the next couple of weeks?
Deputy Mayor and Council, I've made the board aware and made the executive director aware. So I'm sure that as she's just returning from travels, and the board anticipates the request coming through and is looking forward to hearing about it. So I think they appreciate it as well.
Councillor Ramadas.
Another smart aleck comment here, Your Worship. I feel like the incentives are aligned between us, the staff, the Fieldhouse Society and the Tourism Board. So I feel like this will get accelerated.
All right, back to you, Mr. Bornowski. Sorry to cut you short.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And here are the difficult parts. Council needs to be aware, we looked at other sources as requested by the society, and just as part of our due diligence, your other sources are borrowing or increased taxation. Our facility reserves are underfunded. That's an understatement in itself. Facility assessments are proposed likely in 2025. We're working on our initial budget proposals. They are more than likely to indicate that our underfunding of the facility reserves is more significant than our current understanding. This is already stated in our ICP and our AMIP, so our capital investment plans and our asset management investment plan. They note that we have preliminary facility assessments in terms of dashboards for public facilities, none for any of our operating facilities like lift stations, pump houses. So I think there's a lot of challenging news coming about all of our facilities across the municipality's portfolio. And as council is aware, we do have a surplus of facilities and a deficit of reserves. A short-term loan, and thank you to the Director of Finance for providing this, similar to the operations facility for $500,000 over that 5-year term. With the interest rates means a payment for a short-term loan would be approximately $110,000 a year. It's a little over a percentage in terms of a tax increase. Staff are not recommending advancing either option. If council is going to look at taxation increases in this coming year, staff are going to recommend that those go to funding absolutely critical infrastructure or a facility that we are currently undertaking, as you know, that is critical to the life safety of our citizens. Additionally, we have noted in discussions with the society that the site is contaminated. A site disclosure statement is required by the province rather than by the city. It's a provincial requirement. This is likely to trigger a 6 to 12-month process of working and undertaking analysis to understand the site conditions and contamination, potential environmental engineer and analysis costs. We had an accelerated process for the childcare and affordable housing project because it was targeting provincial priorities. It was an 11-month process for that. Second, we do believe as staff that a broad community dialogue on priorities would be highly useful to understand the needs and preferences of the community and those who are underrepresented in terms of their participation on clubs and groups. While I've seen the letters of support and I appreciate how wide the net was cast in forming the original dialogic table and the society, it simply remains true that there are people we haven't heard from, including neighbors, including members of the accessibility committee or communities who are not represented as members of those clubs. So it may be of interest to council to undertake that. And then finally, as an additional consideration, the school district is building an elementary school. They have budget confirmed and allocated. Staff and council, being the deputy and the next in rotation, should be seeing invites to meet with them in the next week or so to initiate discussions about collaboration on that site. And so you may want to put some consideration to whether this is a fit there versus on our property, or if they serve different purposes. To that end, I will leave you with the recommendations, but stop my screen share for questions from council.
Councillor Ramadas.
Thanks, Your Worship. If you could go back to the previous slide, CAO, would you be able to comment to the point that Mr. Anthony made earlier with regards to going with anchors and not foundation, and that might mean that the remediation costs might be lower? Like, anything to comment on that particular aspect?
I may ask Mr. Lennox or Mr. Heisler to speak a little bit to it. If there's less disturbance, there's less soil to haul away is the simple, really easy answer. So the less disturbance we make on the ground, the less soil there would be to haul away for disposal. Any other comments, directors?
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, through to the councillor, CEO Bornowski hit the nail on the head in terms. I did a bit of research on the process that was involved with the proposed childcare project. They conducted stage 1 and stage 2 site investigations in anticipation that the province would require them to do some remediation. The report that was done by their consultant recommended that only, I think it was an acre or a meter or so of soil had to be remediated. That was accepted by the province. That work will be done during construction.
So that was stipulated in their certificate of compliance that was issued by their land remediation division of the province. So that'll be done after we issue the building permit, which we're able to do now that we have a certificate of compliance. That's the key for the city, since we've opted back into that process. So once they get their building permit, they can undertake the soil remediation. It has to be trucked to the facility in Sparwood. Yeah, thanks.
Further questions? Councilor McIsaac, then Ramadaz.
Yeah, sorry, and I apologize for being slow because it's probably Director Lennox back up to answer this question. But and I also apologize too because I'm going to try to make the tone light, even though my attitude is incredulity. It took us 11 months to figure out we needed to move 1 meter of dirt. Is that accurate? It feels like a gross oversimplification, but
it did not take us 1 month. It
Okay.
took a series of studies proving what contaminants were in it, submissions for permits, submissions for plans for how to remediate that contamination, and then a provincial review timeline. And if our local builders are complaining about our turnaround timelines, that's an expedited for affordable housing for a provincial pilot project timeline. So I share your incredulity.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Ramadaz.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is a question I've been asked in the community, and maybe many in the audience might be wondering the same too. And I know the answer, but in the interest of the community, could you please give a statement on, what ODR maintenance schedule is right now? Are we actively maintaining it or not? And what the plan is going forward with the current ODR?
Thank you, Worship. With the director on a temporary leave, I'm not going to be able to give you exact details. The Zamboni structure has been closed, decommissioned. There's no servicing, flooding, and maintenance will be done by hand. We had sought and really struggled to secure volunteers. I don't know the current status on whether any further volunteers have stepped forward to assist this winter. It will be an as we can, if we can, manual flooding and maintenance, unless we can get some volunteers to come out. So significantly reduced, although regardless, it was a limited service area, a reduced level of service for the outdoor rink this winter, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Just curious, if we have that site disclosure statement for the new childcare pilot project, are we not able to use that same one? I mean, it's really close. Please.
I can provide you the provincial contact, sir. No, we are not. It's a separate parcel. Yeah, but Director Lennox has pulled all of the history on that property that the province has and is pulling together our records as well. And, we're here to work through that process, but it's a process.
Jeez. Just to clarify my statement earlier, the average depth was 1.5 meters for a volume of approximately 1,110 square meters would be their remediation that they had estimated. So.
Thanks for that, Director Lennox. Before I pass it off to my fellow councilman, so as I understand it, this facility will, with the exception of pipes and some anchors for the foundation, be entirely above ground. Is this, would we be expecting to run into that type of problem? I mean, if it's all below the asphalt and underneath the floor, does it affect this facility at all?
Deputy Mayor and Council, the process is the process, and we can't issue a permit until the process is run. We were moved back into the process for contaminated sites. It's a acknowledged significantly contaminated site with a troubled history, and I can't stand staff up in front of an application we haven't seen, with designs we haven't seen, not knowing the specifics or seeing any stamp drawings or any actual formal plan in terms of telling you what you will or will not encounter.
Fair enough. Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. If we as a council were to direct staff to prioritize this over the coming 6, 12 months, whatever the timeline looks like, what projects are we risking falling by the wayside, or what work isn't going to happen then?
Deputy Mayor and Council, I think some work on policy and bylaw review and development in corporate administration, I would anticipate would be displaced somewhat as we drafted agreements and reviewed them back and forth. I don't think there's a ton of workload other than the consultation directly with Tourism Fernie at this point. But then if at some point council wants to go and undertake significant public consultation, they should consider that a major project for a communications manager to undertake. If the city is, and I do believe at some point the city likely has an obligation to ensure that there's broad public communication to all residents and an opportunity for some form of consultation and engagement in terms of approaching another capital project. At which point it comes in, it depends on the quality of the application, because we very quickly shift to that of a regulator when it comes to being a building application.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Ramadas. Oh, you're good? Okay. Further questions? Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So it feels like right now the primary considerations are the discussion with the DMO about potential redirection of these RMI funds and the communication outreach to the neighborhoods, both of which feels like they could happen in parallel. So that the outreach could begin about communication out to the neighborhood to regarding feedback from the citizens. And that could happen at the same time as the discussion with Tourism Fernie. Considering how the financial situation was reported, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable moving forward until we've had the DMO discussion and see where that is. But I would like to have that to happen promptly. We're back here in a week. It'd be lovely to be able to hear if we've had a conversation.
Agreed. Councillor Ramadas.
I want to move that if that's possible.
I look to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would suggest that if the intent is for a report back to council to occur with respect to the DMO, that I would recommend that on the staff recommendation number 1, that we would simply add the words at the end, and a report back to council at the, it's not next week, it's October 8th council meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Well, if council's looking for a date for a report back to at least advise where the conversation's at, that would be October the 8th.
That seems as timely as possible. Is that amenable, Councillor Ramadas?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, so that's, I guess you're moving that then?
With respect, I would suggest that I would read out the recommendation with those words in it, and then for that to be moved, if we may.
Thank you,
Deputy Mayor.
Director McConnell.
Thank you, because I appreciate that Corporate Officer Daniel is on the line and taking the minutes, and I want to make it as clear as possible such that we're not losing the language. So if I may, the council directs staff to advance formal consultation with Tourism Fernie and RMI program stakeholders regarding the use of RMI funds for this project and report back to council at the October 8th regular council meeting.
Thank you. Moved by Harshan Ramadas, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Or discussion, I suppose? No, they were all in favor. Everybody was, every hand came up. So, Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to perhaps look to staff with regards to some brief feedback about what the community communication would look like over there, when that would start, and if there's direction from council that's needed, or if that should wait until we have heard back from the DMO. It does feel like it could be done in parallel if we're planning to move something to happen in that area.
There are still 2 more recommendations, of course, in the report. And perhaps Mr. Bornhasker wants to speak to that specific question.
Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. We simply don't have capacity to undertake public consultation on this at the moment. It is day 2 of an organics rollout. We are working on preparing for snow season. I have a communications manager. They're tapped out, respectfully. It's going to be 4 weeks or so before we can even start to look at public communications or prepping. Like they have an extremely full plate over the next month until they can start to carve out capacity without sacrificing some pretty mission critical projects that are already underway in terms of city-led public communications. If there's outreach or engagement or consultation that the society can undertake, I think I would encourage council to engage in dialogues with the society as well at a governance to governance level, because there's lots of good information. But between preparing for the next steps on Fire Hall and the organics rollout, there isn't capacity at the city to advance public communications in tandem with consultation on RMI funding.
That's fair. Thank you, CAO. Further.
I could read the next recommendation if Deputy Mayor wishes.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the next recommendation is that council request the society engage with stakeholders not directly represented through the society to understand potential additional space needs that could be met and provide findings to the city.
Councillor Amadas, Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? It's unanimous.
And the final recommendation is that once the initial scope, costs, community feedback, and implications of the society's proposal are understood through future presentations to council, the city consider a formal public consultation regarding the initiative.
Councillor Hamilton, seconded Councillor Amadas. Discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Amadas.
I have a discussion point for the previous motion, Your Worships.
Oh, sorry, that was my mistake.
That's all right.
Actually, kind of it is technically related, but go ahead.
Okay, thanks for indulging. I really appreciate the point that came about in the report that there is a section of the community that doesn't have a seat at the table, and we need to consult them as well. We've had many letters of recommendation and lots of different user groups that have come to us. We really appreciate that, and I know it is a facility that is needed for our town, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody is at the table. So having those voices are pretty important. And again, it's not an activity of trying to figure out which demographic uses, which doesn't use. That's not the point. The point is there needs to be a universal agreement of everyone in the town. So that point that the report mentioned is well taken here.
Thanks, Councillor Amadas. Back to the present, we have a motion and it's seconded. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor? Oops. Already destroyed the place. It's unanimous. I do. All right, I think that's that. So we're moving on with correspondence. We have the Affordable Housing Partnership, request for financial support. Not sure who's got that for us.
If council wishes to discuss it or wants to consider it, they're welcome to have the conversation. But I believe Mr. Boroneski will want to
speak to it
potentially.
Go ahead, Mr. Boroneski.
Thank you. As its correspondence, it's simply the request from the Elk Valley Family Society presented to council. I had very light comments, and the details should go likely to Director Lennox and to Director McConnell. Waiving DCCs isn't something that staff will recommend. We know that we have many large projects without reserves and many large projects required for future growth that require funding. That's simply shifting the burden further onto residential taxpayers, and I don't believe staff would recommend that we look at waiving DCCs for this project. They were not waived for the North End Court project. Although you do have that option in terms of legislation of waiving DCCs, you do not have the option of waiving the permit fees. They are estimated at $113,000 by the applicant here. However, you do not have that in your bylaw in terms of waiving fees. So that would be a cash donation that would then be returned as a fee, just in terms of mechanics. And permissive tax exemptions are very simple. Council, as you know, considers those once we receive them. And I believe that is in October, where council sees permissive tax exemptions for residential units. So once we knew the residential units and it was divvied up, that would be a very straight ahead consideration for council and one that staff would support.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. I'm wondering if staff can let us know how many dollars are in our housing reserve fund that was established a couple of years ago.
Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. As per the 2024 budget, there's 66.5 thousand in that reserve.
Thank you. Follow-ups, other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Do we have any indication from the letter writers if we do not support this or do not provide these funds, because we don't have them, what that does to the status of the project?
No strong indication that this puts the project in jeopardy. This would have an impact on the actual rents that they're able to achieve while still making their business model work.
All right, seeing no further comment from council. I don't think we have to do anything with that, do we, Mr. McConnell?
It's only if council wishes to make an action from the request that we would consider a motion, but otherwise, if there's no motion coming forward, then it's received.
Thank you very much. All right, before I put that to bed, then I'll just say that we've got a looming infrastructure deficit that we're funding with DCCs, and that anytime we waive something like this, we're putting the burden of carrying new taxpayers onto the existing taxpayers at no benefit to those taxpayers. So I'll just let that go there and move on to public comment opportunity on forest. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Before we move on, if we do have $66,000 and change in a housing reserve fund, I'd like to put forward a motion that we respond to this letter saying to that effect that we have $66,000 available for such projects, and that's it.
Discussion? Or a seconder?
You need a second.
Oh, do we have a seconder? Thanks. Seconded by Councillor Nixon. Discussion?
If I may have a moment, I would just like to clarify the actual language of the motion, but so.
Yep, take your time.
The intent would be to respond with, we have created this housing reserve fund with $66,000 in it. And if they wish to make an application to that fund, they may choose to do so.
That sounds appropriate.
Okay.
And in line with my intention.
Councillor Amadas.
I'm on two minds on this, Your Worship. I understand it is earmarked for perhaps purposes like these, but without understanding our overall reserve situation, it'll be difficult for me to support this.
Understood. Councillor Hamilton, and then Audia Kelly.
Thank you. Perhaps staff can clarify, but is this reserve encumbered for strictly housing such that, you know, we can't use it for other facilities or other infrastructure needs?
Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. I don't have the reserve bylaw open, but it does define strict uses for it, and council can make changes to that bylaw, which would then put those funds available for other use. And just for anyone listening, that reserve initially was intended to be used for potential work on the Max Turek lot. There was a parcel we were maybe thinking about keeping to use for affordable housing, and then we were going to put that money towards the work needed on those lands. And that's why, because that, that project didn't go forward, that's why it's just sitting there now. So it could also, we will revisit that reserve as part of the budget process too, coming in January. And maybe we can have a more fulsome discussion on what to do with it then, but.
Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Shoesmith. I'm feeling similar to Councillor Ramadas, and also there was mention of the treatment of the North End Court development. And I would like to know a little bit more about that, because I think in equity and fairness being applicable as well. So I'm not sure I have the knowledge to support the motion at the time.
Councillor Ramadas.
Having said that, Your Worship, I kind of understand where Councillor Hamilton is coming from. Like, I think your intent, Councillor, is to just give them good instant communication so that they know that, we've looked at this and this is the optionality. So I understand where Councillor is coming from, and yet I also need more information before we jump the gun on this.
Understood. Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As I understand the motion, we're letting them know that they can apply. That would be the perfect time to ask all the questions about when that's happened, about what the implications of that are and how that's supposed to be applied. So I'm in support of the motion that we invite them to apply, as opposed to just writing them a check. And that will be a perfect opportunity during the application to have that discussion.
All right. On that excellent point, I guess I'll call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. I know, I've ruined the place. You see what I did to the office. Councillor Shoesmith's destroyed microphones. It's longer than mine, that's why. All right, moving forward, is there any public comment on the forest development opportunity or activities from Canfor? I don't think any of it's pertinent to us. Go ahead, Councillor Ramadas.
Thanks, Your Worship. I did not see the map. Did anybody send a map? Like, it's
just a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with that without a map?
Noted. All right, if there is no comment on that, we've got reports from council members. We're going to start on the, oh, did I skip something? Oh, yeah, we're going to start on the far right with Troy Nixon.
Thank you, Councillor Ted Shoesmith. Well, believe it or not, when you go to these conferences at UBCM, you find out that there are councils out there like Roslyn that just call each other by the first name. It's very, very informal. It's a very loose meeting. It's kind of interesting, right? Charming. It's charming, exactly. That's for Roslyn. We're very formal here in this valley. Anyways, I did attend that conference last week, the Union of British Columbia Municipalities in Vancouver. Mayor, Council, and CEO spent all week meeting with ministers and their staff. It was a bit of a different feel there because, some of the ministers, like Minister Hyman, is retiring. Although I was confident in that their staff was in the room as well. So, and their assistant deputy ministers were there. So I do believe that it was useful, and yeah, I thought it was a very good week of talking to many people, hence my voice is still broken, and listening and learning. Yeah, it's a really important week for Fernie to make an impression and put our names forward. And I think it's slowly working. So we also, one of the, like our endorsed block, like we had one resolution that went to AKBLG and then to UBCM, and it was the stable municipal funding, and it went, it was an endorsed block, so the province has to reply to that whenever that is. It'd probably be early next year. In another meeting we had with Minister Popham, the burden, we discussed the burden of tourism, and it was definitely acknowledged by the ministry. And although there's a general election, their staff did take that home. So overall, it was a great conference. And I believe despite not having everybody there, a full contingent, I think we represented Fernie well.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Moving on, Councillor Audia Kelly.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Do we need to talk about those terms of reference at all for Councillor Nixon, or are we good to move on?
I kind of thought he would, but it's up
Did
to.
you want to talk about those at all, Councillor?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I know that you guys came and we had some concerns, and so I took it to the my first meeting with the Fernie District Arts Council, and we added in all that information that's highlighted in yellow. From the original terms of reference, now we have, I'm sure we all read that. I think it looks really good to me, and I hope that we can go from a draft to a real terms of reference.
Yeah, looked good to me as well. Councillor Audia Kelly. Oh, Councillor Hamilton and then Ramadas.
Thanks, Your Worship. Great job there. I think that sets a standard for our like being liaison officers on all the different boards. That's a standard that Councillor Nixon has set, and now we can start using the same with other appointments as well.
Good call. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. Just procedurally, do we need to do anything to adopt these and make them the applicable terms of reference?
If I may, Deputy Mayor, the resolution that was passed on August the 13th was that council appoint Troy Nixon to the Fernie District Arts Council Board upon establishment of an agreed terms of reference. So the question is whether or not these are agreed to or.
Councillor Hamilton.
If I may, can I make a motion that we agree to these terms of reference and finalize the appointment of Councillor Nixon to the be the city liaison for the Fernie District Arts Council?
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Audia Kelly. All right, all in favor?
Before you call
Wait,
before you call the vote, let me capture that.
Good. While you're capturing that, Councillor McIsaac.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I did have one question, and that may not be pertinent, because I've noticed that on page 103 of the terms of our report, in the terms that speaks to confidentiality regarding the liaison being required to keep confidential information in their meetings. I'm wondering, it does also include information about board members attending our meetings. If a board member or members from FDAC, and perhaps this applies to everyone, attends an in-camera meeting here, are they bound to confidentiality by our existing bylaws, or do we need to include that in the terms of reference? And this might be a question for our corporate officer.
Yep. Who's doing two things at once?
Yeah, sorry.
Councillor McIsaac, if you could please direct me to the specific statement you're looking at so I can review and confirm.
And just for clarity, I'm not in disagreement with the point, more a question of reciprocity. Are we achieving the same thing on our side?
Well, in fact, I think I want to review that particular statement with respect to the fact that the individual is being asked to maintain a confidentiality that they're not necessarily able to share with counsel. And I have a concern with respect to that without getting some confirmation from legal counsel. So I would submit that I would ask that this be tabled and brought back for that review, because I don't think that the individual council member who's attending the FDAC is able to attend that outside of their role as a council member, and therefore they have an obligation to share with council everything that they would receive potentially, and could not maintain the confidentiality of the FDAC away from the city council.
Good point. So with a motion on the floor, what's the cleanest way to deal with this?
Table it for,
Councillor McIsaac,
I move to table the motion until we can have a discussion with legal counsel.
seconded by Hamilton. All in favor? Unanimous?
thank you. And I will undertake that consultation right away.
Very well. Moving on with reports from council. Councillor Audia Kelly.
As we like to say around here, I don't want to put too many coats of paint on UBCM, but I thought the conference went really well. There were some really interesting sessions. I mentioned the one on housing. There was also one on the resource sector that I really am looking forward to reviewing the slides again. We did have quite a lot of staff and minister meetings, and I would concur 100% with what Councillor Nixon said. I would also like to add that happy birthday belated to Councillor Nixon. We did have a small, tiny little birthday celebration at UBCM for him. And I will be attending the upcoming meeting of the tourism board on Thursday morning, and will report back to council at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Audia Kelly. Councillor McIsaac.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Also went to UBCM. I'll just stick to one particular item since everyone's covering it. I had a bunch of us, but also separately, at least 3 different meetings with ministers and staff with regards to health concerns in our valley, specifically talking about transportation challenges that we have, that people that are here in Fernie and in our region, and also discussions regarding access to referrals in for Alberta physicians and so on, something that has been problematic for our particular area for a while. So those are ongoing, and we look for better and better solutions in the future. I also attended the Rotary Peace Pole event on Saturday, which was very pleasant and very uplifting and very positive. Congratulations to them in that effort. And then I apologize because I'm going to close on a bit of a more sharper note, I think. And that is, as we saw regularly at meetings and at least a couple times tonight, we are severely limited in our ability to respond to problems because we refuse to fund our reserves. We just refuse to do it. We go along pretending we are in level ground tax-wise until we hit a daunting mountain of financial problems, and then we try to figure out how to climb it. And there's a very simple solution, which is regular installments to our reserves, build a long, low-angle slope to the top of those mountains. So I'm just hoping everybody can keep that in mind as we come up to budget discussion soon. A lot of these problems would be much, much smaller if we simply planned in advance for the fact that we're going to have problems. We need to put money away. It's a little bit more taxes now for a lot less taxes later.
Thank you, Councillor McIsaac. Councillor Ramadaz.
Oh, I can't follow after that. That was pretty heavy. I too attended the Rotary event. It was really beautifully celebrated. The words that came from different individuals in their native languages was really powerful. Mayor Milligan was excellent. The MLA was great. Like it was a great event. On that same day, it was like back to back events. From there, I jumped into something in the library, and from there came back to the city hall. The Pride Music Festival was going on, and then I think I missed the fire services event. What was that? Yeah, just too many great events in a small time period. So apologize if I didn't show up at the fire event, but overall it was a super weekend last weekend. Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you very much. Yeah, to attended the Peace Pole opening, got talked into becoming an honorary Rotarian again, getting batted back to the email list. I also went to the Pride Festival with my family, and we had so much fun there. By the time we were done there and planning to make our way over to the safety day, they had already packed up and left. So that was a little bit of unfortunate lack of preparation of timing on my part. And lastly, yeah, UBCM was great. I think most of the meetings that have already been touched on, I won't add to them, but the other meetings that I was also a part of through my role with AKBLG and advocacy on regional issues were in terms of improving codes of conduct and how we better educate incoming counselors on what their roles and responsibilities are as counselors, how we as a region and AKBLG as a body can support communities when they are having issues, conflict issues in and amongst their council or with their community or staff or whatever. And the other big one to kind of follow on Councillor McIsaac's ending point was a really good discussion with the staff at Municipal Affairs on how do we ensure that the work that UBCM has been doing with regards to stable municipal funding keeps rolling. Like that ball needs to keep rolling. We need to make sure if there is a change in government that advocacy work and those plans and projects aren't sidelined. We are not the only community in British Columbia with a massive infrastructure gap, and a lot of our infrastructure issues are a result of underfunding reserves over historical budgets, but also the downloading of a lot of provincial responsibilities, such as housing, which is also actually federal, but we now as communities are being burdened with these responsibilities that by and large are being shouldered by our residential tax bases because we are facing commercial and industrial tax base erosion. There aren't mills in every community anymore. There aren't big commercial districts in every community. So a lot of time and energy and advocacy was spent at UBCM on keeping that funding model work going. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Great points all around. I missed out on most of those great things due to some circumstances with my childcare situation. Although I did check out the peace poll later that day. It's rather nice. I do have the 3300 Club Ducky race coming up. And if anybody's around on Saturday that would love to volunteer to jump in the river with me, that would be amazing. Yeah, other than that, I'm the deputy mayor for the time being and have a bunch of fun and interesting things on my plate. So you'll be hearing about all those at the next meeting. And I think that's all. So with that, let's have the resolution to close.
Excuse me. So the staff recommendation is that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 90 sub 1 sub C of the community charter, as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to labor relations or other employee relations.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Have a nice night.